Red Dragon Archfiend is one of the most powerful, underrated budget Yu-Gi-Oh decks. And I'm not saying this because I'm Black Atlas. Oh yeah! It's time for the Master of Faster, the King of Disaster. The, nastiest of Naster. Black Atlas! Through all of my hard work on Master Duel and the TCG, I'm going to be showing you an updated Red Dragon Archfiend deck that can actually take on the meta. Let's jump on in. I think that Red Dragon Archfiend is an incredibly fun Yu-Gi-Oh deck to play, and if you love synchro monsters, or if you're getting into the game and you want to think about playing a synchro deck, then this may be for you. Of course, big dog, like I said, I did build this deck to be able to beat the meta decks, which means that there may be some cards that might be a little bit out of your budget, but like usual, I'll be giving you budget options. Now, before I get into this video, I just got to say to everyone that has bought the Dino mat, thank you guys so much for buying the Jurassic World mat. I just got confirmation from my distribution is that I have the tracking number and everything. It's going to be here on Tuesday. I would like to apologize to everyone that has bought that Jurassic mat. Dealing with the manufacturer has been completely hell, and the fact that we're just getting it in has been incredibly frustrating for me. Because of that, I don't have a manufacturer. I've completely dropped them. I really wanted to give a resale of these Clash of Rebellion mats, but maybe in the near future when I do find a manufacturer that can be more reliable and can get us more product on time. But let's go ahead and talk about this Red Dragon Archfiend deck. One of the best qualities that this strategy does have is that it's full of 1.5 card combos. There's 3 copies of Soul Resonator, 3 copies of Bone Archfiend, 3 copies of Resonator Call, and a card that we didn't play before because it wasn't out yet is 2 copies of Earthbound Prisoner Stone Sweeper. There's then 2 copies of Crimson Gaia. So the ratios are a lot different from this particular time around than last particular time. We ran 3 Crimson Gaia and we didn't play Stone Sweeper. But overall, this gives us 13 ways to be able to get into our 1.5 card combo. This gives this deck a whopping 86.04% chance of opening its 1 card starter, which means that the rest of your cards can either be defensive cards or cards to be able to extend through your opponent's cards, and this is why the deck is just so good. One thing that I do want to talk about is Earthbound Prisoner Stone Sweeper. If I were to play a 14th card, it would actually be Stone Sweeper over the Crimson Gaia, and the reasoning is because Stone Sweeper could serve as a monster that you can summon to your side of the field, provided that there's a field spell. Now, if this deck did naturally play a field spell, I would be playing 3 copies, but I'm going to have to rely on my opponents using Fire King Island and the Snake Eyes field spell and stuff like that to be able to get my extender in this particular time. Crimson Gaia is really interesting because you genuinely only need 2 cards. I've been labbing the living daylights out of this deck, and as it stands, I've played about 55 games, and I think I'm 55-2. And I play countless TCG games. The 3rd copy of Crimson Gaia has never came up. Shout out to Master Duel and Twitch for suggesting playing 2 copies of Gaia. The reason why it all started is because it was an ultra rare and I only pulled 2. Now, of course, your support cards, your tuner monsters that you want to summon is Vision Resonator and Crimson Resonator, and 1 copy of Synchron Resonator. What I've noticed about this Yu-Gi-Oh deck is that you play a hell of a lot of tuners. So far, this seems to be the perfect ratio for the deck. Crimson Resonator, being a standalone Resonator monster, is criminally underrated and creates a 2.5 card combo that gets you a bigger board with Bone Archfiend. Vision Resonator could technically get you into your combo, meaning that you technically have 15 ways to go 1.5 card combo, but the reason why I didn't include it is because it's better as an extension card to be able to synchro summon, and Synchron Resonator is dumb important for all of your combos. I really wish I could run a second one. The last one is 1 copy of Obsessive Yugioh. This card's really good because there's so many times where you want to be able to banish your synchro monsters in the graveyard, whether it's to be able to recycle with your red zone or in order to summon back with your Bestial Dispatter. But that's it for the power cards for Red Dragon Archfiend. Moving on into the Bestial monsters, because last time we played a really huge Bestial engine. This time around, not so big. There's 1 copy of Bestial Lubellion, 1 copy of Druis Worm, 1 Magnamut, 1 Baldrake, and 1 Branded Regain. A lot of times I actually side out the Branded Regain and the Bestial Lubellion going second, and I'll even side out the red zone for more interruption. And the reason why is because these cards are not necessarily great going second, and Branded Regained as well as Lubellion are not necessarily natively good to this deck. But overall, it isn't the main part of the strategy. The main part of the strategy is ironically the Bestial monsters. What this deck does lack on is being able to summon monsters to your side of the field that aren't tuner consistently. The Bestials are the best way to be able to get monsters to your side of the field that just so happen to be level 6, searchable, and give you additional effects. It's also really cool that these 3 monsters also technically are considered hand traps. They're really good against Snake Eyes because you can banish cards like Formula Synchron, IP, and Link Karibo, but that pretty much means that I play 20 defensive cards inside of this deck and allow me to be able to explain to you the cards that I play. On top of the Bestial monsters, there's 3 copies of Ash Blossom and Joyous Spring, 3 copies of Effect Veiler, 3 copies of Infinite Impermanence, 3 copies of Nibiru. This is an insane number of hand traps, and I really didn't want to play this many copies of hand traps inside of my deck, but when you start to look at the landscape of Yu-Gi-Oh, a lot of times you need 2 to 3 interruptions to be able to just slow your opponent down, especially when you're going against decks like Snake Eyes. And ironically enough, because the deck does have an 86% chance of opening its 1.5 card combo, I can afford to play all of these disruptive cards to be able to slow my opponent down, and bonus points for Effect Veiler and Nibiru for being light monsters. And also even more bonus points for Nibiru and your Bestial monsters for being monsters that you can summon on your field. You can send them to the graveyard with Bone Archfiend, which does come up a lot. Now, the secret tech card that I use to be able to destroy a lot of decks in the game right now is Skullmeister. This card is absolutely insane for this deck because it's searchable through Soul Resonator, but also is one of the very few hand traps that can be used offensively and defensively. I love to use it when my opponent activates the effect of Flamebeard to be able to tribute or to be able to summon back from the graveyard. There's also, ironically, Link Karibo to be able to summon itself. That actually is really good to stop when you have a card like Imperm or Effect Veiler and stuff like that. You know that they want to do that. Skullmeister works incredibly well when paired with other hand traps, and since this is a hand trap heavy Yu-Gi-Oh deck, we can make that work. Next is 1 Call by the Grave and 2 copies of Triple Tactics Talent. These cards come out every single time these 2 cards definitely come out every single time when I'm going second for more hand traps. This gives you an opportunity to be able to play 6 more hand traps, which can make your deck a staggering 23 hand traps. That is kind of crazy for Red Dragon Archfiend. It genuinely means that in this particular deck, even if your opponent does hand trap you at the correct times, they're still gonna have to play through your litany of hand traps to be able to stop them. And then since the deck is so good at recovering and OTKing, it actually puts your opponent in a really tough spot. Now, I really didn't choose how the game is to be played right now with all of these hand traps, and I know you guys are probably sick of them, but I just want to give you guys the best possible way to win with this deck. Now, out of our entire main deck, I think our most expensive card was the Bestial Lubellion. To be honest, you just genuinely do not have to play these 2 cards at all. Ironically, you can cut them down, and this is a 40-card Yu-Gi-Oh deck. Outside of that, nothing else in this deck is over like $3. But moving on to the extra deck, one thing that I really love about this deck is its extra deck versatility. I've noticed that a lot of people don't diversify their extra deck because a lot of times they feel that they're always locked into Dark Dragon monsters. That is not always the case. Ironically, you are only locked when you resolve the effect of Soul Resonator. There are way too many times when my opponent will use Effect Veiler and Infinite Impermanence, and I can take full advantage of that. For the extra deck, there's 1 copy of Red Supernova, 1 copy of Hot Red Dragon Archfiend Abyss Bane, 1 copy of Chaos Angel. This card actually does come up. 1 Dispatter, 1 Barone, another card that comes up. There's 1 copy of Virtual World QB Shinshin. This card is absolutely insane against Snake Eyes and can easily be made with a Bestial monster and a negated Soul Resonator. 1 Hot Red, 1 Scarlight, 1 Draco, 1 Gorza, 1 Red Dragon Archfiend, 1 Scar Dragon Archfiend, QE Belt, and 2 Red Rising. So a couple of things to note about this deck. Hypothetically, if you're going against a deck like Kashtira or a deck that maybe likes to rip out the extra deck, you can drop these 2 cards for an additional copy of Red Dragon and Scar Red. But ironically, if I'm telling you guys the truth, normally when they unicorn, they go straight for your Red Supernova. They kind of have to, because if you can summon this card, you immediately blow them out the water, which gives you enough time to be able to summon the rest of your cards. Now, for you budget players, you can obviously drop the Chaos Angel, but I don't think you can drop anything else in this deck, and that includes the Bestial Dispatter. The reason why is because Dispatter is a main combo piece for the deck, and it allows you to be able to special summon some of those banished cards. Fortunately enough, it is getting reprinted inside of the Megatens, so congratulations, guys. But yeah, overall, this is my extra deck. I never missed a card like SP Little Knight, because this deck is built on, okay, you're going to go ahead and make your board. Either I'm going to break it and go for the OTK, or I make my board, and then by turn 3, I'm OTKing. So normally what I don't include is the side deck, but I want to show you guys a special thank you for your patience and everything. For the side deck, I have 3 copies of Fantastical Dragon Phantasme. This card is crazy good. It prevents targeting and it fixes your hands. It is normally the de facto card that I side in when I'm putting in 6 additional hand traps. There's then 2 Ghost Bell and 2 Ghost Mourner for coverage, 3 Forbidden Droplet, 2 Lightning Storm, and a Duster. This is for Voiceless Voice. And lastly, a card that I hate, but I've noticed that a lot of people are playing hand traps. So I play 2 Crossout Designator. These 2 puppies come in as opposed to the Triple Tactics talent. When it is a game time situation, I know that I need to combo, and I know I need to prevent my opponent from playing. Big Dog, I want to know what you think about my upgraded version of my Red Dragon Archfiend deck, the master of faster in all of my choices. And of course, if you want to see more amazing videos, you already know what to do. Be sure to check out these so I can catch you on the next one.